Welcome everyone to our SIG release meeting. I would like to remind you to please adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which basically means that be excellent to each other and be mindful what you say. So let's start with our SIG release meeting, and let's start with welcoming new attendees. Do we have anyone on the call who would like to introduce themselves? Because if not, then we can directly jump into the sub-project updates. Who would like to give us an update about the release engineering sub-project?
I guess I can do it. There haven't been many changes recently. The last big one was that all of the SPDX and licensing code was split to its own repository. So now the bill of materials tool is now a separate project of its own. We already ran the first release pulling the libraries from that repository, so things are mostly going well. And besides that, I think things have been quiet on the release engineering code base as we are nearing release date. So I think those are it. We have some issues to discuss in a little bit, but they're listed on the open discussion section. But if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Cool, thank you for this update. And thanks for taking notes, Ray. So I really appreciate it. Next topic is the release team updates. So Ray, do you want to give us an update about this?
Yeah, so we are scheduled to release 123.0 on next Tuesday, December 7th. In terms of the release, we do have some milestones that are today, like the docs complete deadline is today. We had release notes complete deadline on this coming Thursday. But we do have a failing job on the SIG release 123 blocking board. It's the GC COS K8s beta defaults. An issue has been open, and there is an open PR and K test infra to resolve that issue or to resolve that failing job.
All right, thank you for this update. So the next topic is the roadmap and vision update. So I provided a short summary about what is going on from a status perspective, how we can align our roadmap and vision with some enhancements in Kubernetes. And we have two open caps right now. So we have the Salsa compliance cap and the release artifact signing cap, and both kind of align with each other. And our overall goal would be to merge both caps because they are kind of small before Christmas. So I really would like to encourage you to give them a review, maybe add some suggestions or just put your LGTM there, because we kind of need to support from the whole SIG to that it's clear that everyone is on the same page, and then we can continue implementing the technical details behind both caps. So I think our next goal would be to, after merging those caps, to start with integrating the signing of release artifacts. And therefore, it's not completely clear but how we do that. But in general, we can kind of experiment and find out. For example, we start with container image signing and things like that. Yeah. Do we have anything to add to this topic, Adolfo? Or?
Not really. So the Salsa one got some comments from Tim, which I'm going to take a look and address today probably. But so yes, everyone is encouraged to take a look and provide comments, insights, or just a thumbs up as we want to really kick this. I think we're lagging a little bit far behind on starting the signing of the artifact thing. This has been on discussions from years, even from the fact that the initial technologies suggested are not even longer in use. So I think we should really give some speed to that development.
Yeah, but to actually start working on this topic, we have to agree on that we want to use the SIG store tool stack to sign our artifacts. And for that, we have to merge the cap. Yeah. Okay, do we have any questions about this topic?
I do. Well, I was very familiar. Sorry for my tone. So I was very familiar with the Salsa compliance framework and etc. But after KubeCon, I started disengaging a little bit because I understood that there were a few efforts from different, I will call them parties or actors involved in this, yeah, in this effort, that were not necessarily technical, but like, to my understanding, there were a few people interested in the same goal. So I didn't know, yeah, I don't know where we are at this point. Like, does the main effort live on SIG release, or yeah, who's the current leader of all of this in general? I know that on our side at Adolfo, you have done a lot of work, and I am very familiar with the code that you have written. Like on the technical side, I don't have any questions. Just like, where does this live?
Yeah, so after some discussions going back and forth, with both online, offline, and by making some trials in code, we are suggesting as a SIG to use cosine and to implement the Salsa framework. There are other efforts around it. That's why we open the gap. So if anyone has any suggestions or could envision a different path to accomplish this goal, they can go into the gap and suggest them. We've been pretty much a lot of folks here in the call. We have had some sort of discussion about what we see, and I think we have been in some consensus that we see the most momentum behind cosine and Salsa, and they're both efforts hosted under the OpenSSF, which is like the sister of the CNCF, sister foundation of the CNCF. So that's why we chose those. But yeah, they're open for anyone to comment and suggest. Especially so there are two important facts to note here. This is a decision to choose which technologies we're following, so which technology set and the framework we're adopting, and because these are user facing, and then we will own as a SIG all of the implementation of whatever path we choose to follow.
Okay, great. That makes sense. Sorry, Sasha.
Yeah. So I just want to underline that we want to keep the discussion surface as low as possible. And yeah, I think we thought about who else could own it, but we kind of agreed on that mainly only SIG release is the owner of this overall effort. So we don't see any other SIGs really involved in it. Maybe SIG testing when it comes about technical details, but not about which technology to choose or how signing, what to sign, for example. Yeah.
Also, some input would be appreciated from SIG security. I already tagged them and shared the cap with them. But we will be the ones mainly driving the effort because it involves code, which is basically under our repositories, and we own that part of the code base.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. So is the current step or the next step to review the things that you posted here and then follow up from there?
Yeah, exactly. And as a follow-up, I see what we already can do. We see that we can agree on those both caps, is to carve out some follow-up stories or issues, because for the signing effort, for example, we could start on some topics in parallel. Yeah, we don't have to block each other, so we don't have to work on it sequentially, because we can sign binary artifacts kind of independently from container images. So everything has to end up in our software supply chain, but the technical implementation can be done in parallel. Okay.
Thanks for all the background.
Yeah, you're welcome. Feel free to reach out if there's anything unclear or if there needs to be any further discussion on some certain topic. Anything else regarding this?
So as far as like the action that's needed, is it more user story based or any feedback on the actual KEP? And I guess like I'm unclear exactly what's needed to help drive this forward, and I'm happy to help out, but I need like a call to action if if I can be asking for that.
Yeah, so the first thing we would like to do is to merge those caps and enhancements. So we really would appreciate feedback on those. So in the first place.
Cool, I'll check it out.
Thanks. All right, then let's go over to the next topic, which is the 123 merges and cherry picks.
Okay, yeah, I can maybe start giving a little bit of background on those. So there was, during the 119 release, I think, a decision was made before 119, including, I think, whenever the release branch was cut, the process to make the branches even was that one of the release managers will go in and then fast forward the branches so that they match and they have all changes and they go in parallel, right? During 119, a decision was made to stop doing that because there were some problems that some PRs were getting a milestone to get merged when they didn't have the proper checks and requirements to go into the release branch. So during 119, the decision was made to stop doing the fast forwards, and instead of that, require PR authors to file a cherry pick besides their feature pull request. So today, and you're expected to go and whenever you want to submit a PR, you submit your PR, and in side by side you should submit a cherry pick request to the release branch, in this case to 123. It seems that the decision was not really well communicated, and during 120, at least when I was the branch manager for 121 and 122, there were people who still didn't know this process existed. We sent a notice to KDev to remind people that we were not fast forwarding the branches, and we expected them to follow the cherry picks. But even right now, we have seen some confusion around that. So that's mainly the background, and I've been in discussion with the branch managers, so that they are aware, and we are in the same channel on this. But yeah, I have to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, so as Adolfo said, we have been discussing this. I saw that there were conversations about 121 and 122 being unaware of the change. And so right now for me, I don't know about Navarin, but for me, I am getting familiar with Adolfo's work on when he was branch manager to see how we can proceed. And I also know that this topic was set for bigger discussion. Like, I don't know if we're waiting for someone else that is not the branch managers to say their input here. I believe that Ray, you mentioned yesterday that you put this on the agenda for how do you say, the postmortem? No, not the postmortem. Well, you know what I'm trying.
Yeah, the release retro. I did add it as a topic because there was some Slack discussions about cherry picks and fast forwards. Yeah.
Okay. So for now, I would say, yeah, hopefully not postmortem. Sorry. Yeah. So now I would say we would like some inputs from the release team, and what would they like to see where we're at. or anyone has any comments.
Yeah, so I know from the PR author's perspective that it's just easier for us to do fast forward. I mean, like,
Yeah.
they don't have to do another they don't have to do another pull request to the release branch. But with the issues, we did that and we had issues with that. So it is, I think if it's maintains the quality of the merge pull requests, it would be better to maintain with the cherry picks. So we don't have issues with milestones and other issues that might come with fast forwards. We could do a lot more communication with that. So we could do it at the start of the release. We could do it in the middle of the release. We could do it at every phase of communication with the release, or once we get pushed into to the branch cut. So that's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the whole release team, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Ray, that just for the sake of, I mean, we only have a few days left for this. So in my personal opinion, not even as a branch manager, but technically speaking, like I would pick the fast forwarding and then discuss it and make sure to build things properly for 124, but obviously happy to follow the consensus. If there's, I don't know, Nabarun, what are your thoughts around this?
I think considering time is at essence right now, and I just checked the master branch, we just merged only 3 PRs since the release was cut. So I'm okay with either methods, but I think like just following the process which we have set in right now and doing the cherry picks ourselves, just like we did for the past 2 releases, for any PRs that were missed, we can do it for now and then come up with a policy for the next cycle at least. If people have consensus, like I can go ahead and like create the cherry pick PRs. The script does it really well.
Does anyone have any links to why we moved away from doing this? Because I'm not terribly familiar with why we made that decision.
So in the first place, we wanted to remove our tooling, or wanted to reduce our tooling surface and the manual effort on the branch manager side. And therefore we decided to minimize the time between test freeze and thaw. So this overall code freeze period should be as small as possible. And we are now down to 2 weeks and recreate the release candidate or the branch with the release candidate, which is also something kind of new since this year. And the benefit is that we have a very short period where the master branch is frozen. And the issue with that is, so in theory, it's totally fine because the process would align with the patch release process. So if you want to merge something into the master branch, to merge something into the master branch, the milestone has to be applied right now. But if it merges and you want to ensure that it's also part of any release, you have to cherry pick into a release branch. And this is the same process for all of those release branches. Reintroducing fast forward would have been the drawback that we would still have some documentation effort around the process. So it would make the process more complicated on the branch manager side. But on the other side, I think, and that's the main issue, we cannot guarantee that everything is merged when we create the release branch, because Brow kind of tests those PRs in batches and then merges if Brow thinks all tests have been passed. And this doesn't necessarily align with the release branch creation, so we don't align on that. So we create a release branch, and it's possible that afterwards some PRs got merged. And it's also possible that some PRs got applied to the milestone, but this is a different process. So yeah, what we can do now is just, as Nabarun already mentioned, watch the master branch merges and maybe encourage those authors of those PRs to cherry pick, or we cherry pick on our side. So this should be fine because we only have a few days left before the release will be cut. And for the future, I'm not completely sure. Everything we change will introduce more effort on one side, but I also see the point that from a contributor's perspective, it's not ideal at all right now.
Are we planning to try to reduce the code freeze window more over time? Like, is the intent to make it as low as possible, below 2 weeks?
Yeah, one idea would be to, I mean, code freeze is something different than test freeze, and we kind of, so the code is not really frozen. It's like, so we have code freeze before test freeze or before the release.
Wrong word, my bad.
Yeah, but it's fine. But it's totally fine. The idea would be to not block the master at all, so we always can merge into the master branch. And then PR authors, if PR authors see that, okay, we created the next release branch, then they would have to cherry pick in the same way we do for patches. But does this work? I'm not completely sure if I have the full context on this.
Okay, thank you.
So when during 122, when some objections were raised about the cherry picking process, I tried to dig a little bit into what I could find about the announcements that went out during 119 or whenever the policy changed. And I sent an email to the community kind of explaining the process and when decisions were taken. I've linked it into the chat. I'll put it into the agenda in a little bit with the links I could find. And the other thing is, so I see three kind of ways forward from this. So the first one is, if we should send out some kind of communication. My current thinking is that since changes to the branch are low, probably that's not needed right now because we don't have a problem in our hands. Then there's the branch managers and the work that has to be done. We are already having that conversation going, and happy to help and provide any of I already shared my spreadsheet, and I have to discuss the way we work. I mean, Navarone is pretty familiar because we were doing that pretty much hand by hand during 122. And the third one is that I think that during 124 we should really establish a roadmap to see and handle this well, because it's still kind of mushy and in limbo. And it's not even in the branch manager handbook that the branch managers are supposed to do this. So after we're done, and Ray added the discussion to the retrospective, and then after that we can hopefully synthesize everything and draft a new policy and design new tools if needed.
Since Stephen suggested, or sort of, let's say that he suggested the fast forwarding, but that obviously discussions had to be had. Do we have anything like specifically against cherry picking? Because what Navarone said makes a lot of sense, especially since there are very few PRs right now. But I don't know if there are any reasons why not to follow cherry picking.
I think the only sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just joined, so maybe I'm missing some context, but when we discussed it with Jordan back last week, or when was it, the reasoning was that it is a manual step. It is something that can be forgotten, for example, by the release leads or whatsoever, and it can happen that, we just don't do it, if something doesn't land in the release that's coming up. And if it is more standardized process done by release managers, then we increase we actually decrease the chance that it might be forgotten. So we have some process that we follow. Let's say every day we fast forward, we know that it is there. We don't have to worry, is someone going to create a cherry pick? Are we going to explicitly request it, or something along those lines?
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, one drawback is probably the manual effort on our side. So reviewing cherry picks takes more time than executing a fast forward. But we have a huge list of milestone maintainers, and I think we had some PRs in the past who got applied to a milestone and then slipped into the release, which were probably worth of a cherry pick and a further discussion. So, I mean, already have the cherry pick process in place, and yeah, so
Okay, got it. Yeah, it can get very messy very quickly, but
yeah, but we don't expect 100 cherry picks in 2 weeks, right?
yes,
So
yes.
yeah, but we can discuss it in the retrospective. So, and then follow up on the process change.
Okay, so for now, when do we have to make a decision, or is it literally just up to Naparun and myself, or I am happy with either at this point. Like, I don't know for the future, but for this few days.
I think for now we can't change the process because this would imply more confusion. What
Yes,
we can do is we can write another summary to KDEV and to SIG release that the branch managers are now more watching what is going to be merged into the master branch, and therefore will consider reaching out to the PR authors for a cherry pick or doing the cherry pick by themselves in the next couple of days, something like this. So
yeah.
if you want to write a message like this, then feel free to go ahead, drop a note there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else to this cherry pick and merges discussion? Because we have 50 minutes left, I don't think that we will walk the boat today, but we can go over to the publishing bot issue. Marco, do you want to give us a summary about the issue and what you have found out in the past days?
So yeah, I will try. So what happened is that, first of all, what we noticed when the 123.0 beta 0 went out is that the tag was missing. That was like 2 weeks ago, and so far we haven't investigated that before because we proceeded to RC, and RC we thought that it will be published, but for that it required that we update the rules because we need to add a new branch. And when Nabarun did it a few days ago, publishing bot failed to do stuff that it needs to do. It failed to add new tag. It failed to do whatever is needed, pull the comments and so on. And we found out that the reasoning for that is that the master branch of some staging repositories like kubectl, client go, and I think those are only two ones affected, are missing one commit. One commit that got merged on Kubernetes/Kubernetes in master. There is no such commit in those staging repositories. Turns out that commit got merged around when we cut beta 0 release, the one that we are missing tag for. And so far, it appears that the publishing bot doesn't really know how to handle the tree that we built when we pushed the release. Because if you remember correctly, a few months ago in June, we changed the process. We don't rebase the master batch anymore. We use merging. So when we push the changelog commit for the release, if something happens in between, for example, someone pushes a commit, we just go ahead, merge stuff, and then push that merge commit back to the master. And you can find issue in the release repo. So I can't share the screen right now, but you can take a look at the issue and you can see at what Git tree eventually we ended up with. So we had like a parent of merge commit, and that one has a child that is again merge commit, and then so on. And that eventually confused publishing bot, and it sees everything as a huge PR. So it didn't really act properly on it. There is a thread on Slack that is going on right now. I think release managers were tagged by Stephen a while ago, maybe like 2 days ago. So you might have seen it. But today it was quite active at Soy Folks, mostly by Dims, by Stefan Simansky and Nikita. And they managed to debug it a little bit. And they're now trying to fix that situation by pushing that missing commit. but they have requested from us that we look into the release process and that we try to do this in the proper way with merge commits, so that doesn't cause the issue, because they don't think this is properly done. So we need definitely to take a look into this before we cut the next release. I think that we will probably save for 1.23 because we will not have any commit in between. But I still think we should spend some time looking into this and try to see, is this problem on our side and can we fix anything about it? For the reference for the end, I tried looking into the code for how we do that, and I'm honestly not sure how I would fix it, because I am not that expert with Git, but maybe someone more experienced might give some idea that we can eventually experiment with at some point.
So I'm kind of wondering where the race is, because we fetch from the remote and then we merge the master into the release branch, or yeah, into the release branch or into the master, and then we push it without force pushing. So usually there shouldn't be any commits missing. So I still don't understand completely where this overall race happens, because this whole process, as you described in the issue with merging, should be fine in theory, so I don't see any big gap with that. So, but I see that there may be some racy behavior between what is going on the remote master branch and what we then merge. But in theory, we can't push if there is any remote change, right? So it wouldn't work at all. So yeah. But did we had any issue with the release? Did we had to retry it on release or something like this?
I'm not sure about that. I haven't checked.
Okay.
And Marco, do they know? So why I haven't read the thread because it all happened really early for me. But why did it happen on the beta release?
So I don't know why beta. I mean, we were wondering why that wasn't the case before, and we concluded that it was probably that we were just lucky enough that it didn't happen. But looks like that day we probably had many comments and triggered some weird behavior of this logic. So it's probably up to that. I mean, we can definitely investigate it a little bit more. So yeah.
What I got from the conversation is, when publishing bot runs, it tries to find the commit from which the branches were forked. And in this particular case, it found a commit from where two different kind of branches were forked. So if you can see Marco's PR, so how we are doing the merging the master into the tracking branch and then merging it back, we are kind of not using the parent master as the parent. So ideally, even Stefan suggested, like, maybe what we can do is, when we push our changes, instead of like pushing them directly to master, what we can do is raise a PR so that it goes through the usual workflow, so that Prow, when it merges the PR into master, it gets the correct parent commit. Publishing bot works on that parent commit for its correctness. It basically uses a function written inside Prow called, I forgot what it's called, something fork point, git fork point. And it uses that to find the parent commit. Now, when it sees conflicts like this, it basically ignored those changes, thinking it to be a big PR. So that was one of the suggestions, that maybe we can create a PR when we are doing the change log or whatever we are doing in that merge tracking into master logic. Instead of like pushing it directly using Anago GCP, maybe create a PR and then someone goes and LGTM approves it, the usual contrib workflow. One more point that was raised in that discussion was how we are trying to merge those branches. Maybe we are picking up the wrong parent commit. So that is something I also did not understand correctly, which probably we need to investigate on why that is happening.
Okay, I'll give it a review. I've been I've been doing some related work at my real work, so I can maybe help a little bit. I'll take a look at the conversation later today.
Yeah. As you already mentioned, it may be possible that the publishing bot doesn't see all commits because it doesn't follow the path we are kind of merging. So it follows the wrong parent commit and then doesn't see this commit and then throws an error. Yeah. I mean, the idea with the PR is probably really, really good. Maybe we can really do this because we are able to create PRs and during our release process, and therefore we would have a chance to review what was going on if we create a release, and then the question is then where would the release tag land actually, or we have to push this tag, right? So we kind of, it's like this tag should land on master in the end, so after the release has been done.
I think the hugest problem in this case is the master branch where we push a change logs. So I guess we would probably not have that much of a problem with the release branches because at the most we would have one merge commit, and I guess publishing bot would probably handle that properly. I'm not sure. We would have to check that. But master is problematic because we do multiple merges over the time because, for example, at that day we pushed 4 releases. We had 3 patch releases and 1 beta 0 release. So I guess it probably caused some confusion around that. But yeah, I also agree that the PR idea is probably a good one and maybe some more work for us, but we also get a chance to take a final look that everything is okay and we will get the proper Git history with that. So yeah, I think that it might work.
Okay, then I would suggest we follow up on the discussion on the issue you opened, and then we will see. I mean, there were some plans that the publishing bot moves into the SIG release ownership, right? Maybe this is a good chance to understand the overall workflow and that we have more influence on how it goes and can keep track of it a bit better in the future. All right, anything else regarding this topic? Because otherwise we have 5 minutes left, and I will give you, if you don't have any further topics, I would like to give you this time back, and therefore I would say enjoy the rest of your day and see you soon. Bye bye.
See everyone later.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.